What is going on, everyone? Mr. Rage coming at you guys with another video, and I just want to say it's been quite a while. I did make an update video a couple days ago, basically just letting you guys know that I'm still active, still alive, because I haven't uploaded in a while, but I'm glad to be back, and this is going to be my first game review of November, because my last game review was actually quite a while ago, and yeah, my last review for a movie was about Paranormal Activity, but now we're getting back to the game reviews, so expect to see a lot more of these game reviews. But um, I'm sure you're wondering by the title, what is the PT trilogy? Well, basically, there are three very specific games on Xbox that have basically captured what PT was and really expanded upon it. Three very specific games. Now, two of these games were like they did it good, but there were other problems with it. And the last game of the three, which I'm not going to spoil, done it greatly. So one game in this trilogy is really good. The other two are decent. One is kind of bad. And unfortunately, this is the one that's kind of bad. Now I understand that a lot of people love this game. Infliction Extended Cut. The game is loved by many horror fans, but I was a little disappointed. But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the review. Starting off with the story. So the story of Infliction is about a once happy family living inside of a suburban home, but unfortunately, something bad happened which caused the family to eventually fall apart. Very depressingly. Now, this game's major message for the story is domestic violence and alcohol addiction. And I'm just like, when I realized this is where my first disappointment really came from, because the thing is, like, where have we not already seen this? Especially when it comes to horror stories. Alcoholism, domestic violence, murder. Like, where have we not already seen this before? Not only that, but throughout the game, the story is just forcing that same subject down your throat. Alcoholism and domestic violence. It's just forcing it down your throat. Hell, there's even a part in the game where like we're inside of a cabin and a freaking wolf head turns around and starts talking to you, and he's like, he drank and we get it, the game already told us that the protagonists are like the husband or whatever, he's an alcoholic, and he was an abuser. We get it though. Not only that, but the story was also kind of confusing. So when you start the game off, you basically play as this husband. His wife calls him while he's driving, and she asks him to retrieve her plane ticket because she's stuck at the airport. So we go to this guy's house and we explore, and we find her plane ticket, and then shit starts getting crazy. We see like a recording from the guy's computer, that apparently he killed his wife, and he's wearing like a cult mask while doing it. So I'm like, I'm not sure if he's like part of a cult or something. Very, like I said, very confusing. But I don't really understand the transition. How do we go from a husband who's just retrieving our wife's plane ticket, and now we killed her, and now we're stuck inside this nightmarish world while being pursued by the ghost of the wife? It's extremely confusing. So I guess let's just ignore the fact that first we came here just trying to retrieve a ticket. Now we're trying to banish this spirit. But anyways, I guess the story is there was this family who were living inside this suburban home who had two children, and things were going just fine for them. They were a happy family until their newborn baby died. One thing I do like is the game is pretty damn dark, because one thing that we haven't seen in some other similar stories is, the child actually dying, and in such a brutal way as well. We That's one thing we have not seen before. So at least Infliction story has that going for it. But yeah, unfortunately, the younger child in their family dies, and after that, things just start falling apart. The protagonist of the game, who is named Gary Pout, after his son dies, he kind of blames the wife. I'm not sure, but we see throughout the game by reading notes and looking at memories from the wife that he blamed the wife for the son's death. he blamed her. Not only that, but of course he became an alcoholic, and he basically just locked himself up in his basement just reading weird books. This is the wife's words, not mine. I'm just saying what the wife said in the notes that she left around the house that you can find while exploring. But yeah, the husband becomes an alcoholic and an abusive asshole, basically. Once again, stuff we've already seen in so many other stories. And again, the game is just forcing those same two subjects down your throat. Domestic violence, it's so bad, and alcoholism, it's so bad. Like I'm not saying I'm not saying these are good things, but like I just wish that the story had something else going for it, because unfortunately it really doesn't. I mean, we've already seen the same thing so many times. So of course, what we see before the death of the child is the wife already had depression, and something killed the baby. While she was sleeping, something knocked down the baby's crib, and of course the trauma from that killed him because, he's just a baby, he's very fragile. But yeah, I'm not sure if the story's trying to show us that maybe it was something else, like maybe there's something more sinister. There's also this thing about this cabin inside the story of the game. The protagonist, like before everything happened, I think he took the wife to a cabin, basically. Tried to have a little romantic night out at a cabin. But something very strange was happening at the cabin. The wife specifically was hearing like strange noises and seeing strange things. And the game is also like the game story is also pointing out that there's more at play in the story. There's more strange things happening. In one part of the story in the game, you are inside of a police station and you could read like a report, and the report talks about how there's this strange entity in the forest, and they basically call him the Icy Hatter because witnesses say that every time they saw him, the area that he was spotted in was extremely cold. So the story is also pointing out that there are other strange things at play here. You've got a cabin that is having strange paranormal occurrences and another unknown entity. Not only that, but again, in that same exact area, the police station, you could read like a recording from actually Gary and Sarah's neighbor. The wife's name is Sarah, by the way, and the neighbor basically talks about how at one night he saw Gary basically outside, just completely naked, and was talking in gibberish. That sounds a whole lot like demonic possession. Because if that doesn't scream demonic possession, I don't know what does, to be honest. But yeah, so the story does have other things going for it, luckily, and they sound very very interesting. I really wish the developers could have explored those a little bit more, because you've got two new concepts here. You've got something strange happening at a cabin, either it's haunted or there's something more sinister going on, and you've got other paranormal entities like the Icy Hatter, which can be seen on a note at the police station. I'm not sure if maybe the developers are going to make an infliction too and basically kind of like explain all these other strange events of the story, but for the most part the game's main story is basically about how this guy killed his wife eventually after his son's death. And another major message that the game is trying to throw is karma. Throughout the game, there's like this voice that you hear on like the baby monitors and like the phones in the game, because you could like pick up phones. There's like this really really dark malevolent voice talking about all kinds of crap, and karma is one of the things that he mostly talks about. Karma. I guess it's our character's karma. And now that's what I don't realize. Like, how did we like again? How did it start off as just us getting the wife's plane ticket? Now we're trapped inside this nightmarish world, and now it's about karma now and all that. But yeah, that's the game's story's main three subjects: karma, domestic violence, and alcoholism. But luckily the story does have a little bit going for it as well. So, yeah, that's basically Infliction's story. It is pretty dark. It's dark, but it's also very cliche because we've already seen it before. At least the game has a little bit more going for it, because with the haunted cabin crap and the other strange entities in the game story. So at least the game is not 100% cliche. It's just it's just 95% cliche. So yeah. Anyways, now we're going to be talking about the gameplay. So the gameplay is again your typical walking simulator. You'll basically be exploring this giant ass house. One thing that I really did enjoy about the game was how basically immersive it was. The graphics are simply outstanding, and for an indie company, my god, they done a wonderful job on both the graphics and just all the details inside the game. Not only that, but this is something that not even Visage or Layers of Fear had, two very, very good horror games that this one actually tops, is you could actually pick up and read like little books inside the game. And you could even read like little DVDs or like no VHSs basically. Like you could read like the back of the boxes and crap. Like it's so cool. And I love how you could actually pick up and read the random books inside the games. You could really tell that the developers took their time and effort to put these little extra things in the game to make it seem so much more immersive, and I love it. You could basically walk around, you could find like these random books scattered throughout the house. And like they're all kinds of different books. They're not like just like one type of book. They're like all kinds of different books. Again, very, very realistic and immersive. And like these books pages, they're actually pretty damn long too. I think I spent half an hour just reading the in-game books. So you could tell that I myself was very immersed. And of course, you could also pick up these like little VHS boxes that are like these movies, and you could look at the back of them. And not only that, but the game is just so realistic looking. Again, just like other horror games, there's also like notes around the game. These notes, you look at them, they reveal parts of the story and just, other stuff about the game. Very cool as well. And similar to Layers of Fear, there's also specific items that when you pick them up, you start hearing the voices of the characters from the past. Again, very much like Layers of Fear. Um, but yeah. So basically, you'll be exploring the house. When shit hits the fan, you'll basically be teleported to different areas. And your main objective in this game is to find four specific items to basically vanquish the malevolent entity in this game, which is this bitch right here. You're staring at her. But yeah, each time you actually get one of the items and you go to get the other one, the game will transport you to a whole new area and it'll seem like a whole new adventure basically. Again, that's kind of like what Layers of Fear is doing, because in Layers of Fear, every time you would retrieve a part of the painting, you would be transported to like different areas and like all kinds of stuff like that. And Infliction does the exact same thing, but I'd say Infliction does it better because the areas that you're transported in are so cool. You in the first part you've just got a part of the house. Then you in the second one you got a police station. Then you got a haunted cabin type area. And then you've got like a mental asylum. It's really cool and it gets you excited. It gets you hyped up because like these are such cool areas that you get transported to, and you basically gotta find these pieces and you gotta solve puzzles to get past it. The game does have some, it's got some decent puzzles. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but they're decent enough, challenging enough as well. So if you're someone who really enjoys your puzzles in horror games, then you'll definitely love the ones in Infliction. Now we're going to be talking about the scare factor. So throughout the game, similar to Outlast's Chris Walker, you're basically stalked by just one specific enemy, and again, it's this bitch right here. And this game also has a little bit of Fatal Frame in it, because while you're exploring the house and while you're also in these different areas collecting your pieces, the ghost basically she'll be pursuing you half of the time, and you could use a camera to basically kind of make her go away for a while. But once this happens, you won't be able to use your camera for a couple minutes or like mere seconds, basically. And at this time, you will be vulnerable. And also, every time you use the camera to basically make her go away, she becomes a lot more stronger and faster. You could also use like in-game lights, like you can turn on a freaking light switch, and like if you get it just right, if you turn it on at the right time while she's under the light switch, or not under the light switch, like if she's under the light and you turn it on, it will also repel her. So the main thing you have to use in the game to survive against her is either lights, either the light from your camera or the light from a light switch. But keep in mind though, she can also make the lights go off if you leave them on. So you gotta turn the light on at the exact right time, because if you just leave it on, she's gonna realize that and she's gonna basically make them go off. So you gotta turn it on at the exact right time. And in terms of scares, the game has some pretty disturbing imagery as well. You've got these really fucked up paintings around the house. Again, like Layers of Fear. This game is actually a lot like Layers of Fear now that I think about it. Just a lot more darker and a lot more, like, with a much more darker atmosphere, basically. But yeah, the game has some disturbing imagery, but for the most part, it is jump scares. But I'll admit, like the sounds like the ghost makes, like because she has like these really static like sounds, and like when you're exploring the house and you hear her little terror radius or whatever, you really do get that oh shit look on your face, and like inside your head as well. Because like the sounds that like the distinct sounds that she makes while she's like about to chase you, because you'll hear those sounds before she shows up. So the game is giving you a heads up and like hey, this bitch is on this bitch is coming. You gotta do something. It does kind of make you panic, and it is pretty effective. So yeah, that's basically the scare factor. Now we're going to be talking about graphics and performance. Now this is where things kind of go downhill for Infliction. Now, I played this on Nintendo Switch, and for some reason, the frame rate on there was actually better than it was on my Xbox Series X, which is extremely strange. And of course, on Switch, there was also some frame rate issues. In specific areas of the game, basically, the frame rate would drop significantly at specific areas of the game on the Nintendo Switch version. But for the most part, the game kept a stable 30 frames per second on the Switch version. But for some reason on Xbox, the frame rate seems a little worse actually. Like even when you're just walking around the game, the frames just don't seem as stable as they were on the Switch version. And even the Xbox One and PS4 version. Like I'm not sure why the frame seems worse on Series X. Not only that, but around the end of the game, actually no, at the exact moment of the game, like as soon as the game's end credits started rolling, my game crashed. It basically hard crashed. Where basically like the game crashes, it makes that loud sound, and it returns me to the home screen. And I was very puzzled because this is the first game that's ever crashed on my Series X. None of my other games have ever crashed on my Series X. So yeah, that was very strange. And when I was looking at some reviews, it seems that others are also having crashing issues. I read one specific review. Some guy was saying that around the beginning of the game, actually, his game was crashing 3 times. He restarted the game, and the game was still crashing at that specific area. And another person also had a very similar crash that I had. His game crashed at the end, but unlike mine's, it actually even erased his entire save file, so it was much worse for him. See, when my game crashed, it didn't delete my save file. I was able to continue, and I was able to, like, finish the game. But when his crashed at the very end, like, it crashed at the end credits just like mine's did, but it actually was worse for him because it deleted his save file, basically. So yeah, and I'm guessing that this kind of crash, like there are two types of crashes that a game could have. A game could either crash at random due to bad optimization, and then the second type is a game could crash at specific areas only, like at a specific area of that area of the game. It will crash at specific areas, and those types of crashes are usually worse because it basically renders the game unplayable, especially if it only crashes at specific areas of the game. And I am very worried that that is going to happen when I play this game again, inevitably. So, Blowfish Studios and Caustic Reality, those are the developers. If you guys are listening, please release a patch on the Xbox version. What's funny and what worries me at the same time is I have never seen these issues on the Nintendo Switch version, so I'm not sure if it's just the Xbox version that has this problem. But yeah, Blowfish and Caustic Reality, please fix those issues because those crashes are severe, all right? Because like if the game is going to be crashing at specific areas only of the game, and not random, well, it's both bad to be honest. I mean, a game crashing in general is bad, but if it's crashing at specific areas only or mostly, it's even worse there. Okay, it's even worse than it just crashing randomly while you're playing. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to give the game a much lower rating because of that alone. But in terms of graphics, the game looks amazing. I'd say the game is on par with games like Resident Evil 7, Visage, Outlast 2, Layers of Fear, Observer, and Blair Witch. Along with GTA 5 and Red Dead 2, the game's graphics are simply outstanding. And again, for an indie company, it's pretty good. Pretty good job so far. Be sure to drop them pallets. Anyways, now we're going to be talking about soundtrack. The soundtrack is extremely good. It's got a very, very dark, ominous soundtrack, and it goes so good with both the story and the atmosphere. Soundtrack is amazing. I love, love, love the soundtrack. It's got some very cool ambient themes, along with some more intense themes. So yeah, soundtrack is very, very good. Now we're going to be talking about some frustrations. Now, as if the crashing wasn't enough, along with the story being cliche and forcing that same subject, domestic violence, down your throat, you can't really run in this game. There is no sprint button. So when you can die in this game, right? So when you die in the game and the game puts you back and responds you to a checkpoint, and when you're a little far from where you died, having a sprint button would have really relieved that frustration, and the game just has none of it. This game does not have a sprint button at all. So yeah, that's one frustration. Second frustration is the game does get a little boring at times. Like it does get a little, like it gets a little teeny bit tedious at times. But yeah, not only that, but like when the spirit or the ghost is chasing you, and like when I know I flashed my camera at her and it still didn't make her disappear, and she still gets me. Again, that is very, very frustrating. And the controls are also a little wonky as well. Like the controls are not the best either. The controls are definitely a little wonky. So is the frame rate. But yeah, those are the frustrations with the game. But yeah, guys. For verdict, Infliction is what I would like to call a game that had a whole lot of potential. Still does. But falls somewhat flat on its face. Kind of like a fat kid who's running to the store to buy some Twinkies and just like falls on his way there, and it's all sad and depressing. Because this is a game that had a whole lot of potential. The story is decent. I really just wish they would have expanded on some of the other stuff that the story had going for it, because between the haunted cabin and the other paranormal things that were happening within the game's story, I really wish they could have shed some light on those other things. And again, I'm not sure if they're gonna make an Infliction Part 2. They definitely should though, because the story was decent enough. If they could just take out some flaws like the whole domestic violence thing, and make it a little bit more, just add a little bit more flavor to it, the story can be so much better than it already is. The story though is decent. Gameplay, if you're into this typical walking simulator thing, then you are going to absolutely love Infliction, especially because of how realistic and immersive the gameplay is, along with the intensity of it. Again, I'm just not sure about that crash. I'm hoping it doesn't happen again when I play again, because I am going to be playing the game again, because there is a new game plus, and I am very curious to see how that is. I always love a little challenge, so I'm hoping it doesn't happen again. But again, Blowfish Studios, Caustic Reality, please, please, please hear my cry and fix this, please, because I don't want this to ever happen again. I hate it. Absolutely hate it when my games crash. It pisses me off. So yeah, if you guys could get this message out to Blowfish and Caustic Reality, definitely do that for me. Let them know that I have experienced a fatal crash on the game, and so has other people on Xbox. So yeah, just get that issue fixed and we'll be good to go. But yeah, for the most part, time for the rating. Infliction gets a 6 out of 10. It's an okay game. Definitely not horrible. Definitely not bad or anything. Just a good little horror game. $20, by the way. So yeah, that makes it even better. It's just for $20 you are getting a great horror game that is like, not the best, not the worst, just just good. Just good. Just a good horror game. So anyways, this was episode 1 of the PT Trilogy. My next one on this list will either be Visage or Evil Inside. Let me know which one you guys want to see. And again, let me know what you thought of this review. Do you think I was wrong? Do you love Infliction? Let me know what you think about the game, because that is all I want to know. I love opinions. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching Mr. Rage's reviews, and I will see you guys in my next video. This is Mr. Rage signing off. Bye-bye, guys, and stay spooky.